So right now we are involved in a series on the creative process, and we are using the teachings of Ernest Holmes to remind us, how do we use this creative power that we have? And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight and over the next few weeks. I'd like to begin with an invocation. I like to think of an invocation as bringing our vessel to that infinite waterfall of good and filling it up so that we can carry it with us. And of course, what happens is we forget. That's why we come back together again and again to remember, to wake up. So join with me. And this is what I know right now. I know that the right and perfect people are gathered here together, are listening. I know that Spirit has a high idea for this time together, and that we are open and ready to receive the good news, the opening, the welcoming. I know that all is well, that despite appearances of lack, the universe has our back and is here constantly, providing us what we need, celebrating us, encouraging us, giving its gifts. And I know that tonight we accept them, we welcome them, we open our hearts to those gifts. So with joy, with gratitude, we say together, and so it is. So my message title tonight is A Running Brook, Singing Its Melody to the Night. This passage comes from one of my favorite books of poetry, Kahlil Gibran's The Prophet. So when the people asked the wise man to speak to them of love, here's what he said. Love has no other desire but to fulfill itself. But if you love and must needs have desires, let these be your desires, to melt and be like a running brook that sings its melody to the night, to wake at dawn with a winged heart and give thanks for another day of loving, to rest at the noon hour and meditate on the ecstasy of love, to return home at eventide with gratitude, and then to sleep with a prayer on your lips and a song of praise in your heart. So what's he telling us? We're talking today about love and compassion, and he's telling us that the nature of love is simply to have more love. All love wants is to multiply, to increase and expand. And the sense of a seed that can't stop itself from sprouting and growing. That's love's desire. That's the way love works. But he also acknowledges that we're human and we have desires. So he suggests, if you have a desire, let this be your desire, to melt and be like a running brook that sings its melody to the night. What does that mean? Of course, because it's poetry, we can all bring our own meaning to it, and whatever meaning we have is the right one. And sometimes a poem, it's not telling us something intellectually, it's creating a feeling within us that wasn't there before. But I like to think about what these words mean. So when I think of melt, to melt, I think of my tough exterior, my shell, my protective armor, just easing away. All my worries about what people think and whether I'm doing the right thing, that melts away. That's what love allows. And then I'm free. I'm flowing like the brook, the ease of a flowing brook. Nothing holding it back. And, of course, when I'm living in love, I'm singing my own song, my own unique song. out into the night. Because the night for me, that dark night represents all possibility, all that's out there. And I hear the echoes of that night coming back to me. So that's what the poet is telling us, that that's what love is. Melting, flowing, singing. So as we look at the creative process, how do we create this? How do we bring that into our lives? That expansive sense of melting, flowing, of singing. So here's how Ernest Holmes explained it. He said, "We are thinking, willing, knowing, conscious centers of life. We are surrounded by it, immersed in it, and there is flowing through us a creative something. Call it what you will. The sum total of all our thought, will, purpose, and belief creates a tendency in the law that causes it to react to us according to the sum total of our belief." Well, Ernest Holmes is basically describing in scientific language what the poet was describing. Ernest Holmes says, to create, let yourself be immersed in that which you seek to bring into form, that which you seek to see appearing as reality. And that creative something, that's the creative energy that we might call God, that we might call the infinite, the divine energy. It's when we allow that to flow through us, unrestricted, that what we focus on comes into being, that we create, that which we envision. So we're going to look at some examples of this creative process. Now, tonight we're focusing on the idea of love and compassion. Each week in this series, as we explore the creative process, we'll be looking at another facet of it, another part of it that might be something we want to bring into our lives. Now, in our center right now, as those of you who are part of our center know, we're in the midst of a great creative project. We are welcoming, preparing for, seeing ahead of us a brand new expansion of who we are, what we do, and our evolution as a center. And this has a number of parts. Part of it is we are preparing to welcome a new minister. We are preparing to find a new space where we meet and gather and sing and hug. And we are looking forward and preparing ourselves to welcome and accept a new experience of living in community, of sharing, of supporting each other. Those things don't just happen. All of those are created. And that's what we're doing. So as we look at that process, which we are all quite excited about and involved in right now, we can also look at the bigger picture, is how do we use those same principles to bring into our own lives that which we seek. So it may be that in our own lives, we're seeking love, compassion, sense of connection, sense of partnership, a sense of shared goals and what's possible when we work together with others. Now, I'm talking about some big things, creating clarity around your life purpose, creating and accepting that sense of knowing and experiencing your oneness with all that is. All of that. Those are wonderful things. And we can, of course, also use the creative process to create more visible things. And we do. We can also use the creative process to bring a new home into our lives, a new car, a new job, money. But what I want you to remember is that all of those really are practice. They're just practice for the big picture, which is knowing and experiencing our oneness with all that is, recognizing and remembering who we are, expressions of the divine, remembering our uniqueness, our beauty, our perfection. So it's good to practice, and we do continually, and then we move into that bigger picture. So let's look at the process of how we create, how we bring something from the infinite into form. So creation begins with the practice of visioning. Now, visioning is a spiritual practice that we use, and many of you use visioning in your life. Visioning is the process of asking, what is Spirit's highest idea for? And it might be, what is Spirit's highest idea for my life? It might be, what is Spirit's highest idea for our center? What is Spirit's highest idea for a new minister to join us as a partner and a guide? Visioning is being still and listening. It's not trying to solve the problem yourself. That's our tendency. We think we can figure it out. Well, we need to do this, we need to do that, first this. No, visioning says, Spirit, what's Spirit's highest idea? And it might be much, much bigger than we can imagine. So we start with that. What's Spirit's highest idea for whatever it is, whatever area of your life you're looking at? Now, the second step is to focus on the nature of reality. Now, what's that? You see, so often we just want to rush into doing things. Let's do this, let's do that. But that's not how it works. The next step is focusing on the nature of reality. Now, what does that mean exactly? So let's say the condition you're noticing in your life is lack, like not enough money. Your focus on the reality is we live in an incredibly abundant universe. You focus on the reality of abundance. Plants spreading their seeds, seemingly an infinite number of them. Generosity, the abundance, the ocean surging and flowing. If perhaps you're looking at a condition that appears as poor health, a lack of vitality and energy, then you think about the reality of infinite health, energy, vitality. You think of God showing up as energy and vitality. So this can be kind of counterintuitive to us. And many people kind of try to rush through this step. They go, okay, vision, okay, the nature of reality, what God is. Okay, God is peace. Okay, I got that. Now what? Sometimes we need to spend more time there. And if people are engaged in trying to create something in their lives and are not seeing results, it's likely because of this step. They didn't stay kind of immersed in this piece of knowing what God is, knowing how reality works, staying there until you feel that. And when I say feel that, I mean like feel it in your bones, not like know it so you can write an answer on a test. No, it's a sense, and it's pretty definite when you get that. You feel a burden lifting, feel an expansiveness, and sometimes you need to stay there until that comes and come back to that. And of course, many of our practices and what we do in our services is focused on that, like creating a space where you can feel that, where you can come into that space of this is reality. A beautiful piece of music, a prayer, a meditation, and you come to that place of peace, freedom, joy. So if we think of visioning, can summarize it in one word as listen. If we think of the second step of really being clear on the nature of reality, the nature of God, we might summarize it as be still and know. This is simply a knowing place. It has nothing to do with the condition that's come to our mind or something we want to change in the outside world. Now, we call these aspects of reality qualities of God. And there are many of these. Here are just a few that are really helpful in the creative process. Abundance, freedom, order, unity, balance, joy, peace, wholeness, beauty, love, power, wisdom. These are all, you could use all of these to describe God. God is abundance, God is beauty, God is freedom. So as we enter into this creative process, this is where we start. We remember this. It's the nature of reality, that abundance exists, that beauty surrounds us, that freedom is our natural birthright. So, again, I'm kind of using the example of what our center's doing to welcome in a new phase, a new era in our evolution and expansion. So, as a center, we are focusing on what is the nature of reality? How do we want this to show up in our center? Now, of course, there's no wrong answer when you choose one, but as I said, if you're looking at a certain area in your life, if you're confused or fearful, you might look at the God qualities of order and unity. So for our center, as we started in this process of what are we going to create, what came to a number of us who gathered together in meditation and visioning and discussion was what we want is a revelation of God as wholeness. And so we came to this, which is kind of the overarching picture of all we're creating in this realm. And so as we looked at our new minister, we said, we see our new minister revealed as a revelation of God as wholeness. Reveal is kind of an interesting word. Means again. Veil is like a veil, like a bridal veil, where, it covers you and you can see, but it's blurry. And when something's revealed, it's like removing the veil, and then you can see clearly. So until we can see that clearly, we can't welcome it. It won't come into our lives. So there's that aspect of it. So this seeing is the next step in the creative process. We had visioning, we had knowing and centering ourselves in simply being and knowing how reality works, what God is. The next step, Ernest Holmes called creating a mental equivalent. So I like to think of a mental equivalent as a mold. So we have infinite, eternal God energy everywhere. And it's just waiting to come into form, but it can't until a mold is created, so it knows what shape to take. When you think of building a house, a blueprint is a mental equivalent. Now, a blueprint isn't a house, but without a blueprint, it's very unlikely that house is going to be built the way you want it. See, in our lives, some of us are like a person who says, well, I want a house, and, I know what I want is available, and it's like somebody delivered a great big pile of lumber and plumbing and electrical things, and then you said to a carpenter, okay, there's everything you need, now build me a house. Like, what are the chances you're going to get what you want? Well, 0 probably, or very close to it. But that's how some of us go about in creating our lives. We go, well, yeah, the universe has given me what I need. The universe doesn't know what shape to take until you create that mental equivalent, that mold for it to flow into. Now, my granddaughter gave me a wonderful example of how mental equivalents work. Because a mental equivalent can be for something huge, like a new era in our center, or it can be for something very small. It works the same way. Just think of that God energy wanting to take form. So this is what happened. So my granddaughter was, I don't know, maybe 8 or so at the time, and her name's Vanessa. And I was driving her and her brother to school one Wednesday morning, and we're 10 or 15 minutes away from the school. And Vanessa says, Grandma, I want to give my mom a surprise birthday party on Friday. And I'd like us to hide in the dark and then jump out when she comes in and all yell surprise. So I'm non-committal. I'm going, well, it sounds like that'd kind of be fun, but I think, your stepdad has something planned for her birthday. And besides, you're going to be at your dad's the next 2 days, so, can't really do anything about it. And she said, well, okay, but I want you to call Peter, as her stepdad, and tell him to take my mom somewhere and then bring her at the right time. And then could you also tell him to call some of her friends to come and tell them when to come in? And maybe he could tell them to bring food and stuff. And could you maybe get some decorations and bake a cake? Okay. So then, like I said, I'm non-committal. Well, I don't know what'll happen, So the kids got out, went to school. I'm not going to see them for 2 days, right? So as I leave, I'm thinking, oh, kids, they're so funny, They just think you can, just do something in a day or two. Things take work and planning and stuff. But then, as I drove home, I thought, well, maybe I could have a dinner, have my daughter over. And maybe I could have her husband, bring her over. And that wouldn't be that hard. So then the next day I cleaned my house and I went shopping. I planned the dinner. On Friday morning, I went to the party store and I bought some helium balloons and some streamers and some birthday napkins. And then after school, I went and picked up the kids and brought them to my house, and they helped put up the decorations. And then, when Lisa and Peter got there, Vanessa and I hid behind the couch and jumped out and said surprise. And then we had the dinner and we had the birthday cake, and Lisa opened her presents, and, it was all great. Now, here's the important part of this story and the great part of it. So as they're leaving, Peter, my daughter's husband, says to me, "Hey, Claire, thanks for a nice party." Vanessa, indignant, stands up and says to him, "Why are you thanking her? I'm the one who did the party." Now, of course, my first thought was, what? Who, cleaned and shopped and baked and decorated? But then I realized she was right. That party would not have happened without her mental equivalent. She saw it in her mind clearly, all the aspects of it. She shared it with me, and it happened. So that's the power of a mental equivalent. Now, yes, the universe worked through me, but if she hadn't had that, if she hadn't created that mental equivalent for the party, can you see that? It wouldn't have happened. And even if she'd just been vague about it, oh, I'd like to have a party for my mom. I said, well, no. I think your stepdad's got something planned. So that's the next step in the creative process, is creating that mental equivalent, creating that mold, creating that blueprint. And the clearer and more detailed it can be, the more likely what you see, what you imagine, is going to come into form. This is one of the challenges for us, to let our thoughts be as expansive as possible. Because we're so quick, even when we get an idea, to say, well, that'll never work, or I've tried that before, that's not going to work, or we did that. Part of this mental equivalent is just letting your mind expand to see what's possible. Now, in the example of our center, what we're ready for is an expansive idea of something new. An expansive idea of a sense of wholeness and connection, love and compassion, partnership, of us joining together. And part of that, of course, is the physical things, the new minister, the place that we meet. But the more important thing is this experience, this sense of what the experience is going to be like. This is us growing in our ability to experience love and compassion, to be love and compassion, to sing our song out into the night like the running brook. So as a center, this mental equivalent that we created, we call our new minister sacred covenant. And you might create a sacred covenant for whatever it is that you're going to create. That's what ours is. We called it our new minister sacred covenant, and it's our mental equivalent for what's next, for what's coming. This is posted on our website, and I encourage you to go there and look at it as an example of how a mental equivalent works, how expansive it can be, how it's about us welcoming and being ready for what we say we want, rather than it being something that's going to come from outside to change us. So this sacred covenant, which I will continue to talk about as we talk about the creative process, because it's such an important part of it, to have this mental equivalent, to be clear, and to return to it and look and say, yes, this is what I'm creating. This is what I see. This is what I'm willing to do to bring this into form. And an important part of this covenant is your personal commitment to your own awakening. What we draw toward us is what we are. Like attracts like. We can't look for something outside of us to come and save us. We can't say, if we just had a different or better building, then we'd have love and connection and joy in our center. No, that's not how it works. We start with knowing that's who we are, is love, is joy, is connection. And then the building that shows up as an expression of that is when we're ready to experience that the things from the outside begin to show up, filling that mold, being built according to the blueprint. So part of our covenant that we created as part of our mental equivalent for a minister, which is a big important piece of this creative project that we're on, says this: as I stand in agreement with my beloved community, I see my new minister revealed before me as a loving, compassionate, inspired leader. It's a beautiful and powerful statement of what we see and what we're creating. And one of the pieces I really love about it is I stand in agreement with my beloved community. This isn't something I can do or any single person can do to create what we're envisioning for our center, what we're imagining, what we're seeing. We come together in community. This is something we all do together. So then the next question is, who do we need to be as a community to be ready for this loving, compassionate, inspired leader to show up? And of course, what we need to be is loving, compassionate, and inspired. I just can't stress this enough. This isn't about something from outside coming in. It's about our transformation, our becoming what we seek, our becoming what we've outlined in our mental equivalent. That's who we are. And as the more we are that, the more we attract that. So we are that loving, compassionate, inspired community that is the right and perfect place for the minister we see to show up. Ernest Holmes said in a wonderful little book he wrote called How to Live the Science of Mind, much of Ernest Holmes' teachings are about this process, this creative process, and how it works and how reality works. And here's what he said: the universe can only give us what we take. And since our taking is a thing of consciousness, the universe can only give us what we're aware of. You often imagine the universe wanting to give. That's the nature of the universe. But the universe can't tell what we really want. Our mental equivalent is confused and blurry, and we say, well, I want this, but, not sure about that. I want a new job, a more exciting job, but, I might get a boss that is difficult, or the work might be too hard, so maybe I don't want that. And on and on. I want more love in my family and more connection. Oh, but then, one of them might want to move in with me, and I don't know if I'd like that. So the universe is trying to sort that out and do what we want. The universe always says yes. But if it doesn't know, I think sometimes the universe says, I can't really tell what she wants. She's so confused. So I think the safest thing is just to stick with the status quo, like more of the same, until I get a clearer picture of what she wants. That's why the mental equivalent is so critical in bringing what you want. So this is one of the most exciting gifts that we have, is this gift of creativity. At the beginning of the Old Testament, the Old Covenant, it started out by saying that God created humans, the gods created humans in their own image. What is God? Above all, God is creative. And that's who we are. We are made in that image. We are creative beings. It is our nature to create. And right now, we have a wonderful opportunity to do that. As a center, we have the opportunity to be a part of creating something brand new and of seeing how it works, how we become what we want to see in the world. So each week we'll be looking at another aspect of this mental equivalent that we created for what's new in our center. Last week we talked about wholeness. Today we looked at the idea of love and compassion. And as we look and explore and go deeper into each one of those pieces of the mental equivalent, then we learn more and more. How can I become that? How can I be what I seek to attract? So embark on this journey of creation with joy and excitement. I know sometimes we're afraid of things that are new and we want things to stay the same or just be comfortable and familiar. But let yourself embark on this as you might embark on an adventure. What makes it an adventure is we don't know. what's going to be around the next bend. And when the unexpected happens, something we didn't foresee, well, that just makes it more of an adventure. So we are on an adventure. And I encourage you to embrace that. Encourage you to be love, to be compassion, and to sing your own unique melody out into the night. Let's take a minute now to go into prayer. Prayer is our way of connecting and knowing the truth. And right now, what we know is that all is well. We accept and recognize and acknowledge our personal creative power to bring into our lives the joy, the abundance, the freedom, the love, the compassion that is ours, that the universe is just waiting to pour out upon us. And right now, as we enter with excitement into the process of creating our own lives, and as a center, creating what's next for us, we prepare ourselves to be open and ready and willing to know that good awaits us, that joy awaits us, that the universe sees a bigger picture than we can even imagine. We have confidence in our ability to do our part, our ability to be that which we seek, to be the love and compassion we know is waiting to be revealed as our new minister. We're confident that we come together in community, that together we can accomplish what none of us could accomplish alone, and that there's a joy in this coming together in community, working together, sharing, joining, partnering. We are ready, we are willing. We give great thanks that this is how reality works, that we are creative beings with the power to create. So knowing this is true, with gratitude, we say together, and so it is.